Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's, for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Metal Storm. No ordinary computer virus. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
Joe, what is an ordinary computer virus?
An ordinary computer virus would be like, I don't know, I don't have anything in the chamber.
Like one that was clever. One was like, hey, I caught you watching a lot of porn and now I'm going to upload it if you don't pay me Bitcoin. Is that like an ordinary computer virus?
I think that might be like a step, like just one step out of the ordinary.
I feel like people need to know, since I brought up that very extreme specific example, that not only has that not happened to me, but if it does happen to you, it's a scam. It's not something that they likely don't have the footage.
Yeah. I think another ordinary computer virus is like your antivirus software is out of date and we've detected 2,000 viruses on your computer.
Right.
It's very meta computer virus because it references so many other viruses.
yes. And this is no ordinary computer virus in Metal Storm because this virus is threatening to blow up the Earth, which is something that no computer virus has ever told me it was going to do. I
feel like I've gotten that like once maybe, but...
Right. They should adapt to the times and start thinking about that. They're like, threatening you on a personal level isn't going to cut it anymore. And that new computer viruses need to they need to threaten your family or your like local town. Like, your Christmas tree lighting will go poorly if you don't pay this ransom.
What would be poor? Like, would it be like changing the colors of your Christmas tree lights or like would there be like
to just blue and white? So
shapes?
Now it's like a Hanukkah thing. It's like, oh, we really got them this time. Like now the Christmas tree is just blue and white.
Maybe just like you can create like shapes or images. It can put text, your social security number written out in the Christmas lights.
Speaking of getting the color scheme wrong on things, what happened here with, I don't know if this thing is called the Metal Storm or not, but this Gundam thing that you control, on the box, it has like a really cool color design of like white, blue, orange, some yellow. It looks like a pretty awesome thing, and in the game, it's just all orange.
It's like salmon color in the game.
Salmon. Yeah, beat the whole game, and then beat the whole game wearing a salmon suit. Such an obscure
I don't work there
reference.
anymore. I don't make those references.
I don't even know if anybody would understand that joke, but I'm making them anyway. It's not a deal breaker. The fact that he's not colored in the same way as the box. I just want to know what happened. That's all I'm asking. I just want answers. There's got to be accountability.
I think that they had to take all the color variety that was on the box, and they had to splash it throughout the background of the first level.
Right. Now, I will say that the reason I bring that up at all, of course, is because Metal Storm, while not being a game that I knew about or had played before, I just am familiar with that box art for some reason. And maybe it's because I like, giant mech robots and I want more of that in my life. but I was so familiar with the box that I for some reason I thought like, oh, this is a game with like a lot of reputation behind it. Don't know if that's true. I don't know if like this was a game that a lot of NES people played or not.
Yeah, I had never really heard of it, but it while I'm playing it, it feels like something that I'll say at the very least deserves some recognition. So I wonder if it did get some recognition. I just wasn't familiar with it.
It is the year 2501. They really covered themselves there by adding an extra year. So this way it'll last 1 year longer than just the year 2500. This game will still be relevant in the year 2500. Right. Humanity has colonized the solar system. There's a defense station on Pluto, which presumably is a planet again in 2501. And that defense station houses a giant laser gun, which as we've learned, that's like a necessary thing in the future. We just need to, it's like the steps are land on Mars, build a giant laser gun on Mars. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you actually build the giant laser gun on the way to Mars. You drop it there, so it's there when you get there. Because you can't be on Mars without the giant laser gun.
I think you could just order it on Amazon and have them send it.
Yeah.
Now, the gun malfunctions and turns against Earth and starts destroying planets. By the time the game has started, Neptune is already gone. And Earth is next. How is that the order? Who's deciding? what computer virus is like?
Is it just like a crazy computer virus that's just like doing random shit? Or is there like a malice behind it?
Sounds like there's malice behind it because it showed, like it did like a little Alderaan thing there where it was like, we can do this to anybody, and we did it to Neptune, and you're next. And it's like, why am I next? Like, shouldn't it be Saturn?
Maybe it's like, all right,
Uranus,
I will
right?
admit I'm not super up on the lore of this game, but does most of humanity still live on Earth?
That's a good point. Maybe half of civilization moved to Neptune.
Can do. Yeah, we can do this. We chose Neptune at random, and you're next.
Damn. All right. That's true. And that's about as much story as you need in a game that is a platforming action game, right? Like that's the appropriate amount. Any more, and it starts to be like, what is this? Is this like, am I role playing as this?
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm not sure if its nickname is Metal Storm or not. It's known as a M308 gunner, and in the manual they give you a pretty awesome like spec sheet and like bio on the M308, and this thing weighs 2,100 pounds, which seems kind of light for a giant mech. It's 9 feet tall, which again seems kind of small for a mech. And it has a 1,300 kilowatt generator, which I tried to like ask AI, like, what's that? Like, can you give me like some appliances that would be the equivalent to? And thankfully, there's no. It's not like they outdated themselves, and that's like one microwave. Like they future proof that 1,300 kilowatts in someone's house is not a good idea. But it does have one special function. And that's what the game is built around. The special function of the M308 is the gravity flip, as it is known. And that makes it so that it can distort gravity so that it can walk on ceilings and back onto the floors interchangeably. The only interesting thing about this, though, is that the M308 seems to have that ability not only for itself, but for other enemies as well.
What do you mean?
The other enemies flip, don't they?
I thought that they were just some on... Oh, do they like flip over? Like their sprites flip when you flip?
In that first stage, don't they like flip when you flip?
They might. Now I will. This is where I guess I'll have to admit something. I didn't really notice I didn't know about the flipping mechanic until
you got the next level.
Probably the second stage. And now I'm watching a video, and it looks like they do flip when you flip. But I don't think anything in the game. I mean, trust me, I got a lot further in the game than the first stage. But I don't think anything in the game after that ever flipped with me.
That's funny.
But, like, maybe there weren't a lot of things walking on the ground. Maybe those walking like turret things just also have the same ability you do? Oh no. Okay, so I'm watching. There are some on the ceiling and some on the ground. Even while like the guy I'm watching is on the ground, there are still some walking on the ceiling.
Oh, okay. So maybe maybe I have it backwards. Maybe I thought we were affecting gravity, but it just happens to be that everybody that's just like that's cybernetics 101 in the year 2501. Everyone can change gravity at will. Yeah.
It's funny,
I don't remember exactly when I discovered stage without doing it.
I assumed that when I realized that I didn't notice if anything flipped, but it was late. It might have still been in the first stage. It might have been after the first stage, but it was a while. I think there's probably a moment where you have to flip, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, I realize what you're doing. I don't know if that comes in the first stage or after, but yeah, it was like too long for me to have not known that I could do that.
Right, because the entire game is this gravity flip. You press up and the jump button together, and you will start to, this sounds weird, but you fall upwards. Now the gravity is shifted, and you'll land on the ceiling. You press down and jump to flip back. And I totally understand. I'm not trying to say like anything about your play style there, Joe. I totally understand because the first level is designed more as a traditional platformer, action platformer game. And once you get to the second level, that is where all of a sudden just the layout becomes very specifically like video game designed to like add in some sort of platforming puzzle element of like, hey, it's not just enough that you have to, get to the end of these stages. You have to figure out how you'll get to the end of these stages cleverly using the gravity flip. And that switch gets flipped right away in the second stage because now there is an infinite scroll mechanic where you can kind of loop between the top and the bottom of the screen in a way that you could never do in the first stage.
Yeah. And two quick things. One, I am seeing that these turrets, a lot of them do flip when you flip. So you weren't wrong there. And two, I definitely, it was during the first stage when I realized you can flip because I'm seeing that there is a point where you are required to do so in order to move on. So it must have just been late in that first stage.
We're on such agreeable terms. I'm so glad both of us could be right. On this podcast, nobody's ever wrong. Only the listener is wrong. Now, the second stage, besides introducing the infinite scroll, it changes the game so dramatically from what we experienced in the first stage, that I had to just look into like, is this going to be the full game, or is this going to happen like just for this level, and then the third stage is going to be completely different? But it just seems like something about that opening level was like you're entering the defense station, and now you're like from there on out you're inside it, and the puzzles evolve a little bit in terms of like there's doors that open and close, and you have to time out. There's different types of enemies that you'll encounter, but the core idea of gravity flipping for multiple different reasons too, not just to like for platforming, but also like there are certain solid platforms that you can only get to by flipping gravity so that you can jump through them as opposed to landing on them. And I just realized how difficult that sounds to the listener. Like it is something that you have to like see to comprehend, because it's the kind of puzzle that like can play tricks on your brain too as you're playing, where you think you're like locked into a space, and it's only by gravity flipping that you sort of unlock another part of your brain that is like, oh, now I can go in this direction because I'm facing that way.
And it does it in this really clever way that kind of hijacks a sort of like shared language that we have as like gamers, or at least like an intuition that I have as I'm playing, where I'm like, I look at some platforms and I'm like, I can land on that platform, but I can also jump up through it. And I don't know why I know that, but I just intuitively know that based on like the way the platform looks. Like there's a lot of games that let you do that. Like I never felt like, oh, I needed to be told that like, okay, if a platform is like this texture and it's kind of pink, that means you can go through it if you're jumping up through it. That sounds way more complicated, but it's like, I don't know. You can just tell.
Yeah.
I think that then adding the ability that you can flip onto the ceiling if it's like you can only jump through something from below it, you land on it from above. If you can reverse what is below and above, it makes this whole new gameplay thing out of like this mechanic that we all sort of intuitively are familiar with.
And there's a lot going on with the color palette here to communicate like different types of solids and what's in the background, what's in the foreground. It isn't one of those games that suffers from being like unclear about like, I didn't know that was a platform, or I didn't know that wasn't a platform.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like a lot of it is like platforms or solids are like, they look really rigid. They look like metal stamped together by a machine. They look like solid items, whereas other things look a little more organic, or things look a little like maybe like wispier lines and things like that. It's just an, I don't know. I can't even really dissect it, but it's an interesting thing that my brain is doing when I'm looking at all this stuff.
And in a lot of ways, this gravity flip acts as just like a form of a double jump with some extra steps. Like it's a way to reach some areas that look inaccessible in the moment, but because you are falling, you're in like a free fall state when you switch gravity in the air, that you could potentially cover, additional ground that you otherwise couldn't reach. And so a lot of times in these stages, even after you've cleared out the enemies, you still have to kind of understand that the jump and when to do the gravity flip in order to successfully move on to the next part of the stage. That is where, for me, Metal Storm shines like the best. The combat with the enemies is like a secondary thing. It's like an obstacle to not just constantly make forward progression. Yeah,
I mean, I agree. The combat is fine, but it is pretty basic, and it's like it's almost like shmup combat.
Yes,
but it's not a shmup, and that's fine.
Yeah, it relies a lot on like, okay, this enemy is currently shooting projectiles or attacking, and I just need to wait for it to stop, and then I destroy it before it starts firing up again. And so that, there's still a rhythm there. There's timing to it, but it isn't more involved than that. A lot of enemies in the game are, like they'll move and then they'll just like continue to move. There's very few enemies in this game that like home in on you and continue to follow you, and you must get rid of them. You just have to make sure that you either clear out the ones that are in your way, so that you can time it right to continue to move on, or dodge them successfully so that they don't deal damage to you. The unfortunate side of that, of course, is that you are allowed one hit.
Right. Right. And while when you're hit and you die, that explosion is fucking badass. Maybe one of the coolest death animations ever, but that doesn't fully soften the blow of like how quickly you can die.
Yes, everything, and then again, it's just another reason for like you have to take this game. Maybe you're a giant mech, so you should be taking it slow to begin with, but you want to take it a little slower because it's easy not to die, provided that you just have patience.
Right. Yeah. And like a lot of times it is like on the second time I try something, okay, now I know what's coming. There's usually like a pretty clear solution. It's not just like everything's coming at me and I hope I'm good enough. Like usually know like, okay, I got to go up here, shoot this guy, and then fall back down to shoot that guy, and then like take cover or whatever. But yeah, they're not being like a health bar. There is, I mean, you do get shields, and you do get like, I think you get like, I guess it's like a 1-up that does give you like one extra hit. I don't know exactly what it is. There's something that gives you one extra hit, but like, yeah, for the most part, it's a one-hit kill.
Just another thing about, how good the game looks too. We were talking about how the readability of the platforms and everything, the boss fights, the sprites are very nicely designed, but all of the backgrounds in these stages have a parallax scrolling to them. Mm-hmm. So it's like a layered background where you can tell that there's a sense of depth there, because the background and the foreground are moving at different speeds. So it creates this kind of like effect that you're moving, you're making forward progress, and that there's depth behind you. And I was looking into it because it almost feels like some proto like Mode 7 style thing that we see on the Super Nintendo. But apparently, this was not like actually just possible with a base NES cartridge, and the developers had to put a custom mapper chip in the cartridge and do like some memory bank switching to make this possible, so that there would be two independently moving background layers to create this scroll.
Interesting. Yeah, now that you mention it, I'm like, this does look, I mean, parallax scroll aside, like just the backgrounds in general look like more robust than most NES backgrounds.
Yeah, and I think there's just something about that effect happening that's more than just flare. It helps with this whole like legibility issue of like not just having sprites moving on two different planes at the same time would probably create a confusing look, whereas here they look purposefully separated because you can tell what is background and what is foreground.
Right. You mentioned the part, like the kind of the way that you use the gravity switcher and the way that you can kind of use them as a platforming device, not just to switch, being your favorite part of, or where the game shines the most. I want to share where I think the game shines the most, which is it does the opposite of what last week's game Magician did for me, where every level is built around its gimmick. And I love that that there's levels where, when you switch gravity, the gravity of like the doors switch as well, and that either blocks you from certain places. It creates a little puzzle element. Every boss battle has something that is like, that requires you to think about the way you're switching gravity in different ways. Like there's a boss where he's got different weak spots that appear in different ways. I think it's like the first boss, different weak spots that appear in different ways, where you got to be on the ceiling for some and on the ground for others. I think the next boss has like, it'll chase you to different quadrants of the screen, and you have to keep switching from the top to the bottom, but there are like lasers that you have to avoid as you switch, and you've got to like really think about which quadrant of the screen you're in. There's the whole level where you're in like a scrolling box, and you have to keep changing like which side of the box you're on based on like as enemies are coming through the box. Like, just they really like designed each level based on like what's our gimmick and how will we utilize it, how will you have to keep thinking about how to use it. And to me, that's where like this game just hit it out of the park compared to Magician from last week.
Right, because it's not just one note of like, hey, you can do this thing called a gravity flip, and that's a great way to dodge enemies. It continues to iterate on that design. And I think what I was saying about what I like so much with these jumps is that there's an indie game that I'm sure a lot of people know called VVVVVVV, and I think that is like a super clean comparison to Metal Storm, because it acts in a similar way where you are flipping the gravity to make some jumps. And while that game maybe did some more interesting things with the platforming than Metal Storm does, because Metal Storm is also heavy on the action part, there are a lot of times in this game where you have to like do a well-timed gravity flip in the air, and you can't uncommit. So once you've done the gravity flip, or maybe you can you? Now I'm trying to remember.
I think you can do it like once. Well, I think it's like, you can be in the air and then flip, but once you've flipped in the air, you can't flip again until
that's what I'm trying to say. So okay, right. So what I'm saying is like, and what makes that great is that you still have to have like, there's some weight to your decisions and everything, but sometimes you'll see, especially in the later stages, that there are, platforms that the next logical one is one that requires a gravity flip, but there's a bunch of spikes in between them, and so you have to be precise about your jump and everything, or know that you have to go through a certain platform to land on another one. I love all of that stuff. But funny enough, while we're talking about so much of the the legibility, and I don't disagree with anything we said in that regard, I was stuck on the second stage for a while, maybe because it was just new, the concept of the gravity flipping and everything. But I kept going in the infinite scroll direction for quite a while, because I just didn't recognize, because it's not a door or anything, I didn't recognize that I was in the part where it's like, oh, if I just walk to the right, I'll enter the next part of the stage. I kept looking for something to like show me to move forward. And for some reason, I just thought that was like the end of a scroll, because the scroll from top to bottom was infinite and left to right was, was not. So when I hit the end of the right part of the stage, I just assumed I wasn't like going to walk through that area for some reason. And I just kept going like up and up and up and up and up rather than...
Right. I did the same thing. And I'll admit that like when I did get to the end of the stage, I didn't even realize that had been... It sounds like that had been available to me for a long time. I thought like, okay, I must have done something that unlocked this that I didn't know of. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I probably just missed it a million times and finally walked through it. So yeah, that was the only time where I was also like, where actually I thought the infinite scrolling thing hurt that level, because I was just like, there's like no indication of what I'm supposed to do.
Metal Storm landed on the cover of Nintendo Power issue 22, along with a 12-page strategy guide. That feels like a huge get for this kind of game. Like, it's not made by Nintendo. It's made by, it's developed by Tamtex and published by Irem. Irem, obviously, we know. And Irem has a cameo of their famous R-Type franchise in this game. The R-Type ship can be seen in the background with all the other ships. But I guess what I'm saying is like Metal Storm got a pretty big press thing here, but apparently a commercial failure.
Really?
Did not sell well.
That's surprising. I mean, because on top of, it being a pretty competent game like we're describing, it also has that cool factor that you think would like attract people to it.
You're a giant mech.
Exactly. Giant mech shooting lasers. You got your like laser shields. There's robots everywhere. I mean, everything's a mess of colors.
It's because they didn't do the color palette correctly on your mech, and because he was just salmon, kids were like, "I'm not a girl. I don't play with pink characters."
I think that, coupled with the fact that 12 just isn't enough pages to have in Nintendo Power, you need at least 14 if you want people to buy your game.
The US cartridge of the game also turned off all the cutscenes of the game's story, but it's in the code. It's just been switched off, so you can use Game Genie codes to get that stuff back. But again, like, this isn't the kind of thing that needs like a big story. You're just It's 6 stages. They're pretty quick. The game is challenging, especially because it is one hit, and some of those boss fights that, like, if you watch them, either by a speedrunner or just like on a complete playthrough, it'll look easy. You have to keep in mind that, especially the later ones, when there's so much going on in the screen, and, Joe, you talked about the ones where you're in boxes and you have to dodge stuff. It's like, remember that one hit and you're toast.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a punishing game in that regard, but it is it's an achievable play, and I did make a lot of great progress on it. Didn't beat it, but did make a lot of great progress on it. I think it's hitting like the ideal length I want these NES games to be when dying is frequent. You don't want to find out something is like 50 levels and you're dying all the time.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's the perfect size for what it is. Whereas, like, if you weren't dying that frequently, you had a bunch of lives and you can get through the levels quicker, you'd probably notice how short it is. But, like, I think a lot of times we look at it at like a negative, where it's like, well, games were made really difficult to artificially extend the length of them. But sometimes if it's designed right, like, well, that's the point of the game. It's a hard challenge, and they're short because it's challenging enough to be short. And I think, though, that's done not just as like a cheap way to make you play it for longer. I think that it works. I think that's just kind of a rare situation that happens.
And if you do happen to beat the game, taking a cue from The Legend of Zelda, this game does have a second quest. You beat the game, and now the enemies and bosses get tougher, hazards are reconfigured, and the amount of power-ups you can find are stripped down. That's a pretty dramatic change.
When you say hazards are reconfigured, does that just mean like a lot of the actual platforming stuff is changed around?
I think it just means more spikes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And we said power-ups are stripped down, but I don't think we talked about the power-ups yet. You mentioned the shield, which is good to have because that kind of gives you that extra hit. But there's also a P and a G power-up that you can pick up. And the P is the one that lets your shot, I guess the P is for punch through surfaces with your fire power. And then G, I can't figure out, maybe it's gravity, but it makes it so that when you do your gravity flip, you can do damage similar to like Samus's shock spin. It's not called shock spin. I forget what Samus's thing is called, but you do a damage while you're doing the flip, which is a cool power up to have. Yeah,
and again, it's a power up that fits very well with the gimmick of the game.
Yeah, and interesting though, you can only have one of these at a time. So if you have the shield, you lose your combat power ups, but you have the bonus of having the shield.
What's your favorite to have?
I think, unfortunately, the boring answer is it's the shield because it just buys me, it buys me one more hit because, I'm just not used to, I play a lot of modern games. I'm just not used to the one-hit death games.
But it buys you, that's what I'm confused about the shield. Does it have, a power level? Because it buys you, it's seemingly infinite hits if it hits your shield. Oh, unless it goes away after a while.
I think you're right about that, actually. I do have the manual up, so I could see if it says anything about the shield. Laser fire can penetrate it, so that's the difference. That's why it seems like so. So bullets are fine, but lasers will go through the shield, so you'll still take damage that way.
Gotcha. But it is also cool that it's like a shield that you have to actually aim it. You can aim it up and down and left and right. And as long as the attack is coming from that direction, you will be mostly, I guess, unless it's laser fire, invulnerable to it. So, there is risk to it. It is not just a shield that is a bubble around you, gives you extra hits. It's still something you have to actively use as the player. And I think that's something we don't see too often either.
Yeah. And the one you were talking about with the extra hit, it's not the shield one at all, actually. It's a separate one. It's that A one, the armor.
And, that makes sense.
And the armor gives you one additional hit. There's also a couple of extra bonus ones that are for points and stuff that no one's going to care about. But there's an extra time one. Never felt like I needed that.
Is there a time limit? I didn't even know.
There is. It's at the bottom left hand of the screen. And it's funny because they give you more than enough time. I feel like you'd have to be playing pretty slow.
I think I do remember noticing it when I was on that second level and I had just been looping forever and I was like, well, I'm going to run out of time.
Right.
But otherwise, it just kind of blended into the background for me.
And in the manual, they also have the mention for what the barriers mean, the ledges and the barriers of if you see the arrows going in the up and down direction on any particular ledge, then it's a two-way barrier. But if you see it only having down arrows, it can go down only. So, another reason why it's always good to read the manuals, folks. I'm sure that was covered in the Nintendo Power issue as well.
Yeah, there were 4 pages on it.
This was loved by critics at the time. As I mentioned, it was ignored by shoppers, but EGM gave it a 7.75 out of 10. Computer and Video Games gave it an 88. Mean Machines, I'm not familiar with that, but they also gave it an 88. IGN ranked it as the 46th best NES game. 46th best. That technically that's they're telling us to put it on the essential games list.
I was just gonna say, how many do we got out of?
Right, I think we currently have 36. Let me see.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely they definitely
we have 42.
Essential.
Yeah, we have 42, so we have to put it in, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're basically being told to by IGN. But it had because of the poor sales, it had a low print run. So it's now a bit pricey on if you go on price charting or anything like that and search for Metal Storm. I'm going to see what a complete in box one goes for, because that's going to be... Yeah, complete in box goes for $525, folks. So I don't know if any NES game is worth $525. I'll be honest.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not, right? Like, you're buying that for a different reason at that point. And it's not money laundering. Yeah. But here's the good news. In 2019, Retrobit and Limited Run Games reissued it based on the Japanese version of the game, which had the cutscenes, and more importantly than the cutscenes, had a color-accurate M308 gunner. So the colors you saw in the box art, it had all of those, not just the one salmon note.
So you consider the box art the color accurate, not the actual sprite?
It's a great question, Joe. I'm glad you asked that, because even Super Mario Brothers original art on the Famicom, Bowser looks like completely different there than anywhere else. So it's like, why would we consider that the official, right?
Right.
Like, if why am I picking and choosing box arts based on my own personal headcanon? Have you ever seen Bowser in that original Famicom Super Mario art?
Yeah, I think I have, actually. I mean, it just looks like a regular dinosaur or something, right?
Yeah, much more dinosaur-like. And I guess Bowser's actually, like, he's a turtle, he's a dragon, he's a cat. He's
cat. I didn't know there was cat DNA.
I feel like what is there? There's got to be something in there with the claws.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe that's just part of the dragon thing. But
yeah.
I mean, there is Meowser.
Oh,
that's a real thing. Yeah, Meowser is the final boss of Super Mario 3D World.
Never knew.
It's awesome game. I love Super Mario 3D World. But we're here to talk about Metal Storm. There was never a Metal Storm 2, but as I mentioned, the Famicom version has all the necessary tweaks, and I believe came out later after the US release. So if you want the correct white mech, the tweaked they tweaked the gravity flip. I wonder how they did that. I don't have any information on that. Maybe I got citation needed next to that Wikipedia source. Maybe they let you flip in the midair, so this way you can just constantly keep changing. But I feel like if you could do that, couldn't you just fly through the level by technically just like hovering in the air by flipping up and down at all times?
Yeah, if you could just constantly do it.
Yeah, if you could just constantly do it.
Crash Bandicoot 4, which came out a few years ago, had an ability where you can do exactly this, and that was a lot of the game was like you can flip pretty consistently. A lot of the game was about like, by the end of it, you did have to almost fly in the way you were flipping.
Right.
So, it's not unheard of.
And what is it about like mechs in video games that have the promise of being like something cool?
I don't know. I think that it's like, I mean, everyone thinks any sort of like a fighter jet or a tank is cool, but this is adding this level of fantasy. You're in this giant thing walking around. I mean, it's a wish fulfillment. Like, yeah, I would love to be able to pilot a mech suit, and it's like part superhero, part robot, part vehicle. I mean, it's just what more could you want?
If you recall, a couple months back on our Nostalgia Bites podcast, which is a separate podcast you can get by going to patreon.com/nostalgia, we recorded Metal Slater Glory, another metal game, and that one had a mech in it as well, and was a completely different kind of game too, but again, sold that like cool experience. But I'm just remembering now, between Metal Storm, Metal Slater Glory, and Metal Gear, which also was like, a giant mech, there's something in like Japan's vocabulary for mechs and metal. And I think that's pretty metal.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
I think it's metal to call mechs metal.
I see you cut out on the word metal. I think you said it's pretty reasonable, which it is.
I think it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it is also metal, like the opposite word of reasonable, like just like as far as vibe goes.
Hardcore, if you will.
Yeah, it is very metal to call mechs metal. And I will say I thought about Metal Slayer Glory a lot while I was playing this game. It reminded me of it. It's one of the few games that I can easily remember. And we often talk about Sean forgetting games, and I think that gives me a little bit of a shield, and people don't notice how often I forget these games, but it's at least as often as Sean does. So it tells you something about these mech games that they're sticking with me like this.
And something that continues to stick with this podcast is the Essential Games List. Joe.
All right, so I think I'm going to make last week's episode and this week's episode a sort of duology, or like this is the companion piece to that.
Yeah, you must listen to Magician before you consider listening to Joe's Metal Storm vote.
Yeah, and that should be like pretty, obvious. It's just pretty intuitive that you need to do that. But whereas Magician had this really cool mechanic but didn't build the world around it, like we talked about this already, this game is the exact opposite of that. Like, this game has a gimmick, and we often think of the word gimmick as like a bad word when we're coming to a video games, but I think it's only bad when you didn't build your game around it in a way that utilizes it in an interesting way. And this game, I mean, every step of the way, I do think that it's doing something interesting with the fact that you can flip gravity. I mean, even I guess it's not the final boss, it's close to the final boss. You're just riding on two different tanks that are circling around each other, and you have to just keep flipping gravity in order to stay on them, because if you fall up or down, you're dead. It's just every time I get to a new level, I'm like, oh, this is a new way to think about this thing that I've been learning how to do the whole game. And I think with that, and the levels being well designed, the combat being fun and not overcomplicated, and I guess very functional. I don't know. I think that you can't not have fun with this game. I think I gotta give this an essential vote. I had a blast with it, and I think it's a really cool mechanic. I won't call it a gimmick even. I think it's just a cool mechanic that they explore to the fullest. So definitely essential in my mind.
It is definitely a cool mechanic, even if it is just a platforming trick. Like, if it's not doing anything in a 3D space with the gravity, if it's just this way you can now walk on ceilings, it still works in a way where, yeah, I totally agree with you that they never waste the opportunity to find something to do with it. It's not just okay, this boss now has, he hangs out on the ceiling, so make sure you gravity flip, and now he's coming down to the floor, so make sure you gravity flip. It's never that boring, but the game is also incredibly accessible right from the very beginning, in a way that, all of the best games on this system do that kind of thing, where you can just go right into them. It's not like reading the manual will help you, but it's not like you need to read the manual for Metal Storm before you can just jump right in. And even when you jump right in, and this isn't a knock against all RPG games, because RPG games do have menus, but since you made the analogy to Magician, this is the kind of game that never stops. You'd have to stop. It doesn't ask you to learn a new thing in a way that is so complicated that you have to go to a training area and learn how to do that thing. It's just pure platforming with some light action combat around it. I will also be voting this for the Essential Games list because I think that it's so easy to get into, so rewarding to keep playing, and still just challenging enough to hit that sweet spot of, it's not an easy game. You won't be able to just play it and beat it, but with enough time, this is something I feel confident, even as I'm watching the final boss fight, I feel confident that if I put the hours in, I will eventually be able to complete this game. And that's the sweet spot for all of these NES games, is it's just long enough that it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just challenging enough that it kind of inflates its runtime by causing you to become better at the game through repetition. And all of that repetition doesn't feel, mundane or overdone because there's so much else to do besides just, change gravity. There's so many other parts of the platforming and parts of the combat that keep you engaged. Would it have been better if there was more to the combat? Better is an interesting question there, because sometimes when you just add features for the sake of adding features, I don't think so. And so I think that this game is one of those games that's getting on the essential games list because it chose to do just enough with the mechanics without making any mistakes that I could make a case against it being essential. Joe, I know you already voted, but thoughts on that idea of like if they would have added, like if this would have been more of like a run and gun mech game, would that have hurt Metal Storm?
I think it would have, based on what they built here. I think that like this is a really good iteration of what this is. I think they'd have to rethink just how the whole game is. I think that is like a reconfiguration of the whole game for me. And I'm not saying it would make it not essential, but I'd have to see more changes than that, to kind of fit around it, because I have to stick with my thesis statement here of they really built this game around the one thing. So now as the companion piece to Magician, I have to keep it, or else that whole Magician episode will be ruined as well.
Hopefully we get some more Metal games.
Yeah, hopefully we get some more reasonable games.
What's funny is with the Metal games too, we also did play a game that was Metal and for Nostalgia Bites as well, and that was Holy Diver. That just had like a lot of metal music references in it, including the hit song Holy Diver. But I'm gonna run a quick Command F here for a second on Metal, and we do have one coming up very soon. Metal Mech, Man and Machine.
Wow, it's metal and it's a mech.
Yeah, I didn't know that was allowed. But I'm looking at it, and yeah, you're in like AT-ATs. Are those the big elephant ones, or are those?
I always confuse AT-ATs with ATSTs. I never know what it is, but I'm just glad you didn't call it an AT-AT.
Of course I called it an AT-AT my entire childhood.
The only reason I'm just like, what do we call ATSTs then?
Right, yeah, you can't call them ATSTs. So I totally agree, but I just found out I'm happy to report AT-ATs are the elephant ones. Now, do you know what AT-AT stands for?
I feel like I used to, but I don't. Is it all-terrain something?
Yes, all-terrain armored transport. I'm gonna give you like 90% of the credit, even though you only gave me 50%.
Wow.
Like I think that was pretty impressive to go out there on that. All-terrain. I've only ever seen these motherfuckers on Hoth. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. No, they're not on. Yeah, they're. Oh yeah, are they in? Are they on Endor's moon?
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking if they were
because the Ewoks like hit it with a branch or something and it blows up. I remember that.
Oh,
or no, I think those are the standing walkers.
Yeah, I think those are the ATSTs, which they are all-terrain scout transports.
Oh, I see.
Little Star Wars here for you guys at the end. Nice little treat here. A little.
Every 400 or so episodes, we throw on a little Star Wars.
How crazy is that to talk about Star Wars in a completely positive way that's not toxic towards the fan base or shitting on the movies? That's so nice of us.
Well, you let me on here long enough, and I won't be toxic, but I'll shit on some of the movies.